Welcome to the TriMetric Roadmap, powered by Business Freedom Advisors, the podcast for business owners who want to grow their business and enjoy their life. Hey, I'm your host, Scott Landis, creator of the TriMetric tracking system and author of Balancing Act. If you're tired of chasing success at the expense of your health, your marriage, or your peace of mind, you're in the right place. On this show, we help you track what really matters: business health, life quality, and leadership performance, all in one simple, powerful system. Because when those get out of sync, everything else starts to break down. Our goal here is to help you align it all so you can lead with clarity, scale with purpose, and finally enjoy the freedom you've been working so hard to create. And if it feels like no one's ever shown you how to pull that off, this podcast might just be the missing link you've been quietly searching for. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the TriMetric Roadmap Podcast, brought to you by Business Freedom Advisors by Jeff Jacob and Scott Landis. That's me, I'm Scott. And today, we've been talking about vision and presence, communication and culture. Today, we're hitting the one that usually breaks that scale. This is a really important episode for you to share with your friends, and just get ready, buckle up, tune in, get your mind into it. Execution through others. So what do we mean by that? Basically, in our executive performance assessment, this domain is about your ability to scale by delegating outcomes and holding accountability, and really not doing everything yourself. That's what is necessary for business freedom. So if you feel like everything still rolls back to you or more than it should, and even if you have a team in place, this episode is for you. And let's start with just the contrasting, Jeff, delegating outcomes versus tasks. What is meant by that?
Yeah, delegation is huge. Especially, and this is especially difficult when you're talking about at scale for people who have started an organization or have gotten involved when it's very small, and being able to really grow past a certain point. There's a real roadblock or a ceiling for your growth if you're not able to delegate outcomes. And it's hard for most founders who have been entrepreneurial and started their own business, because you've had to work so hard at making everything perfect and making everything be something people want to buy. And then now you have to delegate that to other people and trust your baby with other people who just nobody's going to care about it as much as you do. And we've got some practical rules for that, like the 80% rule that we can talk about later. But the big difference is, are you delegating tasks, or are you delegating outcomes? And if you're delegating tasks, like go get my dry cleaning, kind of thing, that's for an assistant. But if you're delegating the outcome of, I need my life to be organized, and I need to, then they can look at their role a different way. We could probably use better examples than that. But if people really have ownership of an outcome, they have much more buy-in than if they have ownership of a task. If it's an architectural firm and they have to get these blueprints done, that's a task. But if they're really trying to make this a beautiful building, that's an outcome. And there's a whole different kind of buy-in that your average person is going to have with that. Of course, there's outliers, but we're talking about the masses.
Yeah, you make some good points there. I mean, as a business owner, you're so used to owning all the tasks. And so I think this is such a key concept, if you haven't already thought about it, about just shifting your mind from owning all the tasks to, as a CEO, if you're the CEO, switching your mind from, and this is something we walk business owners through all the time. You've been an entrepreneur, you know what that feels like. Now you're starting to feel more like a business owner. There's some maturity in that. And now you are working on moving from business owner to founder with freedom. And in there is being the CEO, the chief executive. And you really need to focus primarily on outcomes. You really shouldn't be doing any tasks as a true CEO. So that's the goal. There's a spectrum there. You want to move through it. And the way to do it is to reduce the number of tasks that you're managing or delegating and move towards creating outcomes, defining outcomes, giving the vision of the outcomes, and communicating those and delegating the outcomes so that others can be, it's called delegate and elevate, right? That others can own those outcomes and they can manage those tasks to get there. And Jeff, you said last episode something that really fits here, that it's about how secure you are as a leader. Insecure leaders, they have to be the hero. They have to look good. They have to be the one who gets it all done. Secure. There's something about a secure leader that has this presence and this ability to just own the outcomes. And that, again, it's a spectrum. Where are you on the spectrum? We want to move to a place where you feel absolutely secure in the vision and the outcomes that are defined and being able to delegate those.
Yeah, absolutely. And for a lot of leaders, it takes redefining what success looks like. And if success is for you accomplishing a task, getting to an outcome, then you're going to be hands-on too much with every little task. But if success for you looks like building up the people and the organization, then it looks, and you don't have to do any of the work of it or the tasks of it, then that redefinition completely changes what your role is. Because one thing we help people with all the time is building out an org chart. And there's different ways we can look at that, but for the general mind is building out the org chart. And then really as the founder, your name is responsible on every one of those boxes on the org chart until you get it replaced. And success really looks like getting the right people and their names on those responsibilities or those positions, and then you just being able to manage them, to coach them to be really successful in those spots, but your name no longer being on all of those different positions on the org chart. But most founders don't function with their name removed from those places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. And it reminds me of, years ago, I worked with a second generation. He wasn't the founder, but he was, he grew up in the business and he took over the business from his dad, and a logistics business in a warehouse, or they, were part of the shipping chain. So they would have pallets come in and pallets go out. And so there was a team that was, running the show. But this guy, second generation, he grew up running everything. He was the guy that dad delegated all the stuff, and he held a lot of responsibility because dad could trust him. And but they had a team. They had some good people on the team. But I was coaching with him for months on this topic of delegate and elevate. And he was just having trouble getting past the idea of things being done in a certain way and perfect being 100%. And you mentioned it earlier, the 80%. So finally, there was a breakthrough with this guy. And it was just, the concept came to my mind as I was sitting with him. And I said, that 10 to 20% of imperfection. And this is a business where, kind of like from a Six Sigma perspective, I mean, the minutia of off it translates to the bottom line. So it really made sense in this perspective that imperfection of, say, 10 to 20%, I want you to calculate the cost of that. There is a cost to it. You're going to have some inefficiencies. You're going to have some, actually to the bottom line, a calculated cost for it not being 100% when you delegate the outcome and somebody else does it 80%, 90%. Not perfect, but you just let that be good enough. And the difference in the bottom line or the inefficiency is your cost, and there's an ROI. And that's where the breakthrough came through. He's like, okay, because he felt this stuckness. And when he could see that there's a return on the investment of that 10 to 20% of imperfection or inefficiency, cost, he could see that, okay, I can't get past this stuck place of I'm basically doing everything. If I don't spend the 10 to 20% to invest that, he changed his mindset to a cost to investment so they can have a return on an investment of elevating to a higher level. He's trying to get to that CEO mindset. He was trying to let his team grow and scale and do things without him being there. And that was the breakthrough when he realized that it doesn't have to be perfect. You can calculate the cost and there's a return on investment. And there's no other way, guys. There's no other way to get through that than to say, okay, nobody else is going to do this exactly the way I'm going to do it. And if I ever want to get to that CEO level, be a founder with freedom, I'm going to have to pay that investment.
Yeah, and the other aspect of that that's interesting to me is just like charging your phone battery or electric car or something, charging that last 10% takes a lot more time than charging to the 80%. And it's the same thing with most things we're talking about with this delegation, 80% rule, is the cost to get something from 80% to 100% is what's holding most people back from being able to move forward. And that old adage, you can't steer a still ship. A ship has to be moving to be able to be steered. And trying to get that last 10, 20% of perfection is stalling most leaders because they can't delegate because of it. And if you can't delegate, then you're missing out on being able to move forward, especially at scale.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's shift gears for the remainder of the episode here to accountability rhythm. And this, again, all of this episode really depends on the last episode. So if you missed the last one we talked a lot about culture and culture building and, getting the team engaged to the culture. This next part, accountability rhythm, it really ties, it's like, the left hand and the right hand going together. You need both. If you try to do this accountability rhythm without that clear culture that we talked about last episode, it's not going to work as well or at all. And if you you have to have that culture defined, you have to know what that is so that you know what to hold people accountable to. So there's two things we hold people accountable to: the culture and their roles and their outcomes. Using an accountability chart. The idea of the seats on the bus. So last time we talked about the culture, who's on the bus. The accountability rhythm is about what are the seats on the bus, define what roles each seat on the bus is, and making sure you have the right person in the right seat on the bus based on their gifts and their skills and their abilities. Let's talk about the question that's actually in the executive performance assessment. How strong is your accountability rhythm, Jeff?
Yeah, accountability rhythm is really important, and we're going to get into the accountability rhythm, long term for management or coaching of people. But there's an accountability rhythm in delegation too. There's practical examples of, I do, you watch, and then we talk about it and talk through it. You do, I watch, and then we talk about it. And then the you do, I coach after that. And that's where the continued accountability rhythm comes into play. So many people make the mistake of either delegating too early, letting people just go on their own and having the freedom too early before they've been coached to the level of being able to be held accountable to a certain standard, or on the other hand, holding the reins back too much and not acknowledging that person's ready to move forward. But it's really the accountability rhythm on the back end that gives you confidence as the leader to be able to let go of the reins, loosen the reins at the right point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. So reflection question for you, the listener. If we looked at only your recurring meetings or written cadences, or the process that Jeff was just talking about, the check-ins with one-on-one check-ins with people, would we see real accountability or mostly like status updates and firefighting? What do we mean by real accountability versus just status updates? I think, again, I love the theme of secure leadership. Insecure leadership, what I've seen with that is those meetings turn into all about me. And here's what, it's very focused on the leader. And it looks like, here's an update of all the things I did. Here's an update of, what I've been doing. And you're telling the team what you've been doing. That would be a status update. And then the team's like, well, what about this? And then you go into firefighting and you get to be the hero. All of that is indicators of insecure leadership. But real accountability and an accountability rhythm is more structured. What we would see if we looked at those meetings are, okay, last week we talked about these outcomes. Let's check in with everybody that got assigned outcomes and tasks. What got done, what didn't get done. Okay, that got done. Great. We move on. Oh, that didn't get done. Okay, cool. What got in the way of that getting done? Is it, are we waiting on something? What's missing? What's next? All of that stuff. And you're making it all about them, all about the team. And you're basically facilitating an accountability process. It's very structured. It's very effective. We handle this for our clients at Business Freedom Advisors. We handle it for them, and we train the team up on how to take that on. But it's a game changer once you start getting that rhythm going.
Absolutely. And it starts with, so we have goals that we set as an organization for every quarter. Here are the goals that we're going to set all together. And then there's goals within for each person as well. But those goals for each person have to feed into the goals of the organization. So if we're trying to hit a $3 million top line revenue as a goal, as the individual worker, how is my goal really feeding into that goal for the organization, and then having it just be visible and just be upfront about it and talk honestly. And if something didn't get done, they're not necessarily shaming people for that, but just talking through the problems, and then it'll become clear also, is this the right person for this role? And then you can use the 90-degree rule, where I'm talking about this thing, not this thing. I'm not pointing a finger at you, I'm pointing a finger over here. So it eliminates the defensiveness of the person. You can say, okay, this role that you're in requires this thing. Are you able to be this thing or do this thing? And over time, it doesn't have to take a lot of time, though, that person will realize themselves probably, you know what, I'm dying here trying to be this thing that I'm not. This role isn't right for me. And that's just because of the cadence of having their goals, their tasks up front, and an honest conversation about it, and being able to, if they see they're consistently not hitting the mark and we can see why, it's just clear. There's no shame in that. There's no guilt in it. It's just, this isn't happening. This isn't right. And you can either then coach or eliminate that person.
Yeah, you bring something that's, I think, a real felt pain I've seen with organizations where we've come in and implemented this process. That I'm thinking of a particular client, but I think it's relevant in most businesses, where you start talking about high levels of accountability, and it's almost like there's like a friction, they don't like the word like accountability. That sounds mean, some, maybe we're a little too nice sometimes, right? Side note, squirrel. But yeah, it's not about being mean. It's about, and we've talked about this a little bit the last episode, but it's the nicest thing you can do for someone is help them either get on track with what's going to fit that role, or find the role that's better, that, let's say they're a good culture fit, but they're in the wrong seat on the bus. So we want to find that out. The nicest thing you can do for them is help them say, oh, that's actually, we've got you in the wrong role, but we've got a role over here that would be much better. Let's move you from that seat to this seat. Or worst case scenario is that we figure out, oh my gosh, this actually, like, maybe there's a culture fit, but we don't even have a seat on this bus that fits you. But we know another business owner who you would be perfect for because we love you. You're amazing. We just don't have the right seat for you. Letting that linger and just like continuing that perpetual motion of just hanging out in a role that doesn't fit, that's so unfulfilling for a human. And they're going to be much more fulfilled if you find them either the right seat or a different bus where they'll be more fulfilled. Accountability isn't, I mean, it's, I guess there's a little bit of a painfulness to it. It's like pruning, like the concept in the Bible about, the vine and the branches, and the pruning process is a healthy process to help the business grow, to help the person grow. So there is a little bit of pain in being pruned and cut off what isn't working, and and aligning to what is working. So there is a little pain in it, but it's a healthy pain, just like working out at the gym. It hurts to work out, but it's healthy and you improve from it. So that kind of pain. And at the end of the day, it leads to greater fulfillment. It's so frustrating for everyone when there's somebody that's in the wrong seat or on the wrong bus, and including that individual that you are, holding accountable. I think about accountability as a good word. That's a lot of, I had to, in that client I was thinking about, we had to like train the thinking, reframe this word accountability. It's not a mean word. It's the nicest thing you can possibly do. You know what I mean, Jeff?
Absolutely. And there's a fine line in there. It absolutely is loving, nice
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
For people. It's helpful for people to know where they stand and know what you expect from them. And if they're hitting that mark or not, that's helpful for people. It's really easy though, when we're trying to be nice, to get into the area of caretaking people as well. And there's a line in there. And if we can help people, if people aren't right for this role, helping them find another role or in another organization is great. But also, I lean more towards, if they're not right to be on my bus, they can find another bus. It's their responsibility to find another bus. If I can help with that, great.
You're right.
But it's not my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, I'm not going to caretake them. And that's where the care can be unhealthy, when we're not just caring, but we're caretaking. And there is a fine line in there. But
Good point.
it's not carrying their responsibility on as my responsibility.
Yeah.
But it's also not being a taskmaster either. We're not like holding people to these standards. We're helping. It's a different mindset, completely different mindset. We are coaching people and helping them to rise up to this level that we need in that role.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, there's other things we could talk about, but I feel like we're pretty close to wrapping up here. I want to just leave our listener with maybe a couple of takeaways. If you're not already doing an accountability rhythm, where in your week, who on your team could use a non-negotiable accountability rhythm, whether that's one person on your team that you need to do that process that Jeff was talking about, of that what I think of as the apprenticeship process, where if they're working into a role, you show them, you watch them, and then you work into a place where they're doing it and you're just coaching them. That step-by-step process that requires a weekly or at least every other week rhythm. And weekly project review. Think about it this way: if you rewrite a task that you want done as an outcome, if you've been delegating tasks and you want to have people be responsible for outcome and delegate the outcomes, rewrite that. How could I rewrite this as an outcome? How can I delegate this as an outcome rather than a task? And then also, when you have somebody on your team come to you and suggest something like, here's how I want to do this. If you feel like that's not how I would do it, resist the urge to say that and say this instead. Walk me through your thinking on that. And those are just a few tips that come to mind. Jeff, do you got any more?
I think that's really good. Yeah, we have to start with a fundamental mindset of wanting to build people up. And if you have people that don't need being built up, then get a new position ready for them. I don't think they're ready for the next level then. And so I think we should always be in a position of growing as people and as true coaches, being able to always be in a position of building people up to the next stage. For most people, there are certain people who are built for sustaining where they are, but that's pretty rare in the level we're talking about.
Sure. All right. Well, we're out of time. Thanks for listening to the TriMetric Roadmap Podcast and this episode about execution through others. If you could use some help with this or you want to see where you're at, make sure you go to TriMetricQuiz.com, take the assessment, and we will follow up with you if you would like some help with that. But you'll get a TriMetric snapshot so you can see where you're at on the TriMetric.
Thanks for listening to the TriMetric Roadmap powered by Business Freedom Advisors. I've been your host, Scott Landis. If you're growing a business but something still feels off, you're not alone. That's exactly why we created the TriMetric Quiz. It's not a personality test, it's a powerful diagnostic tool that shows you where you're in alignment and where things may be silently slipping off track across your business, life, and leadership. It only takes a few minutes, and the clarity you'll gain is a game changer. Go to TriMetricQuiz.com to take the quiz now before the cost of staying stuck gets any higher. Until next time, stay focused, stay aligned, and keep building a business that truly supports your life.